I have three things on my mind today. Three words: the bucket, the well, and the spring. Key to understanding today's gospel, the story between Jesus and this Samaritan woman, is something that those three things, the bucket, the well, and the spring, all have in common. Something very simple. It's something that we're all made of. Without it, you will die in a few days. What am I talking about? Water. Now, there are two types of water that Jesus is talking about today. There's natural water, and then there's living water. There's the water that you get from a well, and there's water that you can only get from Him. There's water that will make you thirsty again, and then there's water that when you drink it, you will never thirst again. And that is the water that today Jesus is offering to the Samaritan woman. Now, to understand this whole gospel that we heard, we have to get out of our 21st century American mindset and put on the mind of the people of that time. And when you do, you will realize how revolutionary this interaction is. First of all, what's the thing that sticks out to you, that surprises all of us, that surprised Jesus' disciples? They saw Jesus talking with who? A woman. So in that time period, men didn't speak publicly with women unless they were their wives or other family members. There wasn't that interaction that took place. What's the second thing that sticks out, that's surprising? Jesus is a Jew and she's a Samaritan. Samaritans were basically, in the eyes of Jews, they were like the half-breeds, pagans. They had taken the Jewish faith and diluted it. They didn't interact with one another, so you clearly would not have a Jewish man interacting with a Samaritan woman. Jesus is breaking through these barriers. What's another thing that sticks out that's surprising? What time of day is this woman at the well? At noon. Why would you go to a well at noon, especially in that part of the world in the scorching heat of midday? Women went to the wells either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day when they weren't going to get scorched. What else? This woman, is she with a group of people? She's alone. Women, if they would have gone to get water, would have always gone in groups because it was a very communal culture and you needed help to carry the big pails of water that you were carrying back to your village. This woman clearly is not part of a group. Why is she alone? Well, she's a moral and social outcast. How many times has she been married? 5 times. And the one who she's with now is not her husband. So even according to Jews, Samaritans, no matter what culture, she's outside of the social ring. She's an outcast. But that's where Jesus meets her, because Jesus knows that she's looking for something. She's searching for something in her life. And that brings us to the bucket. What is the bucket here? The bucket is your longings, your desires, the thing that you use to fill up the deepest part of your soul. And in order to fill up that bucket, where do you have to go? You have to go to a well. Because the water's way down there, and you got to dump your bucket down in there with the rope, be able to pull it up once it's full. You have to do all this arduous work to bring that bucket back to you. The woman wasn't there striving for great things. She wasn't pondering the big questions of life. She was simply there to draw water. But there she meets Jesus, and now her life is going to change. But this woman, like you and me, has a spiritual thirst. A thirst that, more than the water at the well, is something so important and will only fill the deepest longings of her heart. Jesus is basically saying, think how much your body needs water. Without it, you'll die in a few days. I've got something that your soul needs more than your body needs water. And if you go to anything else to quench your thirst, then that thirst will only get worse. We have a spiritual thirst, and we go to all kinds of places to try to find it. The spiritual thirst is the purpose of your life. What is the meaning of my life? We're sometimes asking ourselves those questions, but if God isn't part of the picture, then look at all of the places that we go. Consider these the wells of your life. What are the places that you go to find meaning? It could be food. It could be social media or our devices. It could be your appearance, how beautiful you look. Maybe it's sports. Maybe it's your kids' sports. Or maybe it's this woman, the feeling that you have to always be in relationship with someone, no matter how dysfunctional it may be. Or it could be the more meaningful things in life. Think about your job, something that's good, something that makes money, gives you a living. When that becomes the main well that you go to draw water from, now your whole identity is wrapped up in your job, and that becomes the sole reason why you're here. And then you become a functionary. Think about something that's even more important than that, your family. If your family is that total well and that's what you give your whole life to, and you're doing this arduous task of pulling up the bucket of water from out of there, then that's where your treasure is. As a priest, I can easily fall into this too. I'm not saying you all, I'm pointing to me. Because I can easily let what I do become my purpose and the meaning of life. Think about all of you who have jobs. It's what you fill your day with. It's what you use to keep from being bored. You always feel like I've got something I have to do. For me, I have to admit I'm often tempted to go to those certain wells to fill up whatever deepest longings I have. I think of the well of power and authority, to want to be in control of everything. I think of the well of adulation and praise. So when people say, "Great homily, Father," and I think, I don't remember even what I said. Gee, thank you for offering that. That can be a well to go to and try to pull that bucket up from. Or it could be the well of personal accomplishment. How many of us have that? Where how much money I can raise, or how fast I can build something, or how much I can impress the bishop. All those things can be the wells that I can go to, that you can go to, that you drop your bucket down in, and you're trying so hard to pull that bucket up through all this effort. And just like the Samaritan woman, we're always going outside of ourselves to that well. Even if it's a good thing, your job, your family, all great things, even the church. We're always going outside of ourselves to fill up that bucket of our deepest longings, to give us purpose in life. But that well is always outside of you. You have to go fetch it in order to be fulfilled. But what Jesus is saying is that well cannot be outside of you. It's got to come from within you. That's why here Jesus offers something different. It's our third thing today, the spring. Jesus says, "The water I will give will become in him a spring welling up to eternal life." I can give you a purpose that permanently wells up within you, that you don't have to go fetching at the bottom of a well. It comes up from within you. I can give you peace, fulfillment, and joy from within. For all of you who like to build things, would you ever build your house on top of a spring? Not unless you did some serious modifications, because what's going to happen? That foundation's going to crack. You got all this water coming in. You can't keep that spring from continuing to flow. You can cover up a well, but you can't cover up a spring. You can throw all kinds of junk on it. You can try to fill it, but it's just going to keep bubbling up. A well and a spring work differently. The water in a well is pulled down by gravity, and you have to work your way to get it. But the water in a spring defies gravity. It bubbles up, and it comes to you. That's how the grace of God works in a soul that is open to him. You don't have to work for that water. It flows from within. And Jesus is saying, I can give you a spring from within, welling up. I can give you a joy and a peace that no matter what life throws at you, all the family problems that you might have, your issues at work, your bad habits, no matter all the junk that the world throws on top of you, that spring can still well up and the water can still bubble forth. You don't have to keep going back to those wells to find meaning and purpose in life and to be thirsty again and again and again. You can have that spring that's within you. However, in order for you and me to go from the well to the spring, something has to happen. What happened to this woman? Jesus encounters her alone. How did Jesus get this woman alone? Well, she got herself alone. How did she get herself alone? She screwed up royally. And because of that, she's an outcast, she's isolated. But look at this. Jesus uses her screw-ups and her mistakes to get her alone. When you and I are successful, when we're making money, when we're doing everything right, we've got people around us to give us company. You're not alone. You're not asking the deep questions of life, like, why am I here? What's the purpose? You're busy. You're doing fine. But when you screw up, and we've all been there, when your life gets turned upside down, then you're alone with him. Where are those places that you feel that God is letting you go through suffering and pain and difficulty? When you think of those times that maybe God's letting you go through that, maybe he just wants to get you alone. And he can finally say, you know, all of those wells that you keep going back to, all those places that you thought you would find fulfillment and your hope, your failed relationships, your sports, your social media, your career, even your family. Go get all those wells, bring them back here. Just like told this woman, bring your husband back. And show me how those things truly satisfy you. And I'll give you the living water that will not let you down, but will leave you fulfilled and joyful and at peace. So what do we do with all of this? How do we carry this forward when we're alone, when we feel that the Lord wants to meet us? There was one detail that was said towards the end of the gospel, but it was said so quickly I don't know if we caught it. It's this: the woman left her water jar and went into the town and said to the people, "Come see a man who told me everything I've ever done." She left her water jar at the well. She no longer needs that to be reaching down into the wells of her life, because now she's been changed and she can turn her life around. And she has found the source of life-giving water that will make her never thirst again. Do you and I long for the same thing? The life-giving water that we can only find in the person of Jesus. Let's take this woman's example and leave our buckets at the well. And instead, let the spring of living water, which comes from Jesus Christ, well up within us.